Coffee Pot Conversations.
Hello, bonjour, bonsoir, bienvenue, and welcome to Coffee Pot Conversations, hosted by an Englishman in Paris. My name is Paul, and on today's episode 1.5, Rory's debut, we are listening to the debut of Rory. He's my eldest son. More on that shortly. But today, what's happened in the real world? Today actually being the 4th of March. Now, this is one of a few meta-transgressions that's going to be taking place. But today in France, on the 4th of March, France has made abortion a constitutional right. But what I'm not particularly happy about is the way it's all been reported. I don't want to go into politics. A lot of these I'm reading through the internet because I've been working 9 to 5 job today. It says France has become the first country in the world to explicitly include the right to abortion in its constitution. But I was also flicking through, and it may just be me not fully understanding the whole situation. But I've read somewhere else that it's now the first country in 50 years to make abortion a constitutional right. And this is all to do with America tightening the laws a little while back. But what's nice is that the French government are generally in agreement. The bill was approved in the 780 as opposed to the 72 votes against making it happen. And that was a joint session of Parliament convened at the Palace of Versailles. Both houses of Parliament, which is the National Assembly and the Senate, had already adopted a bill to amend Article 34 of the French Constitution. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, who I've mentioned in a blog post, I've gone over the whole President and Prime Minister issues, saying that we're sending a message to all women: your body belongs to you and no one can decide for you. There were apparently jubilant scenes of celebration, according to a few various websites, who all appear to have taken the same information, which you sort of also see that on Instagram. People are sort of regurgitating material. One of the main regurgitations of Paris, naturally, is the Eiffel Tower. And tonight, they've lit up, as they always do, but they've popped on it, hashtag mon corps, mon choix, my body, my choice. And I like that. But one thing that I did like, and I'm interested in this side of things, President Macron on his feed has said, French pride, a universal message. Let us celebrate together the entry of a new freedom guaranteed in the Constitution by the first sealing ceremony in our history open to the public. See you on 8th of March, International Women's Rights Day. Today's vote makes France the first country to have a constitutional right to abortion since the former Yugoslavia inscribed it in its 1974 constitution. Serbia's 2006 constitution carries on that spirit, stating that everyone has the right to decide on childbirth. One thing that we do need to be aware is that abortion was actually legalised in France back in 1974. So amending the constitution hasn't happened very often. Since 1958, when the most recent constitution was made, it's been amended only 17 times. The last time was back in 2008, when Parliament was awarded more powers and French citizens were granted the right to bring their grievances to the Constitutional Court. So this is just days ahead of International Women's Day. As President Macron mentioned, it's all going to kick off on March the 8th. And today, Congress was actually opened by a woman for the first time. It was the President of the National Assembly, Yael Braun-Pivet, who launched the proceedings, saying that I am proud to pay tribute to all the women who have written, have acted, have fought daily so that we can climb the steep slope leading to equality between men and women. And just echoing that, Prime Minister Gabriel Attal did tell the session of Versailles that we owe a moral debt to women, and he also said that passing the amendment would be a victory for women's rights. So I'm just going to finish off here by saying, for me, I'm pleased that France are all agreeing on something quite fundamental to women's rights. Whether you agree on abortion or not, I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to pass opinions or cast aspersions. I have my opinions, my thoughts, and that's how it is. So, but my main issue with what's going on is in the recording of it, saying that they're the first country yet. I'm not really sure that's fully right. It's all headline grabbing, but that's for another discussion. So, moving back to episode 1.5, Rory's debut. A lot has happened since it was recorded back in August 2023. I believe South Africa won the World Cup. Let me just check here. Who won Rugby World Cup 2023? And the answer is, yep, South Africa, National Rugby Union team. So it did win the rugby. Myself and Rory discussed this. So there's no real spoiler alert. Yeah, different bits have happened. Rory, by the time this episode is released, would have turned 13. Because this is being released on the 12th, which is the second Tuesday of March 2024. So he has matured. He's listened back to this episode, just the weird section. So it's the second intro, the original intro. He's heard that. He's also heard our interview, and he's heard the original outro as well. So this is the new intro, and there will be a new outro section afterwards as well. Again, it's all meta, and it's crazy times. So that's it for me for now. So I'm losing track of how many times we're going to hear
Coffee Pot Conversations. Coffee Pot Conversations.
In this episode, I'm bringing my eldest son Rory to talk about his perception of Paris. We had a few practice runs for the podcast, only a couple of minutes each, and then I threw him in at the shallow end. Guiding the interview as best I could through different parts of our various trips to Paris. A few points to note. The first is that there were 1 million people in the Champs-Élysées on New Year's Eve. The next point is the brand name of the drink that we discussed, Champagne, also known as Le Champagne des Enfants, champagne of the children. We've still not had the spare bottle that we have at home. Another point. Later on we discussed Southend briefly, which is a seaside resort on the east coast of England. It's a place that most Londoners from the north and east parts of London went to during their childhood. Brighton and Bournemouth are the haunts of the south and west Londoners mainly. Another little incident to note is the fact that I did French for 3 years and Spanish was actually for 4 years, which we started in the second year of secondary school. The lady at the Ibiza beach bar was called Marta, which I'm sure isn't a particularly Spanish name. And Casey Laulala, apologies for any mispronunciation, is the rugby player that has now moved back to New Zealand to empower Pacifica people with knowledge, resource and specialised support into residential property ownership. This was after he built up his restaurant, Itacoa Pariso, on the Rue Saint-Denis. It's not often that I take time to interview my children as opposed to interrogate. So for me, this was an absolute treasure of a moment. It really was. One that I'm hoping we'll both cherish for many years to come. And as always, I'll be typing up the notes and popping them onto the website, which is a whole other project for me at the moment.
Coffee Pot Conversations.
Hello and welcome to Coffee Pot Conversations. I'm here with my eldest Rory.
Hello, I'm Rory.
There we go. And we're sitting in a coffee shop in rainy August. So I brought Rory in today because he was giving his brother grief and aggravation. I thought now's a good time to have your debut interview for my podcast. So thank you, Rory, for turning up. It's not that you had much choice.
Not really.
But it stops you from Nerf gunning your youngest brother in the face.
I'd have done it anyway.
What, the Nerf gunning? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I did, I'll try it.
Nice. So, one thing that I like doing is studying and learning. As can be seen by my recent qualifications. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing and Religious Studies, and then went on straight away to do my Masters, also in Creative Writing. My theme of my final year for the Masters was all Paris-based, and that's sort of what kept me going all this time. So Rory,
Yep.
looking at Paris and studying, what have you learnt about Paris?
I have learned that there's always something going on. Like, it's never just a quiet Sunday. There's always something big going on.
However, you say about something going on Sundays. Did you know the first Sunday of the month, traffic free in parts of Paris? Absolutely.
Wow.
And you would have noticed that partly when I did my half marathon, if it had been on the first Sunday, which I believe it was, as was the full marathon.
It was quite quiet, to be fair.
The 10k was the second Sunday, but we were lucky that they shut off some of the roads for us around the back of the Louvre. But so Sundays, quiet days, loads to learn.
Yeah,
You've been to Paris twice now.
I have indeed.
Once was an amazing trip in between Christmas, and then we led it on to New Year's Eve.
It was very nice. It was really nice.
We missed the fireworks due to a poor geographic location. However, I didn't want to be involved with the I think 2 million or 500,000 or something people that
And you
were
bought a
there.
surprise.
What a
The
surprise.
champagne, or the fake champagne at least.
Absolutely. Fake champagne for those listening, because Rory is under the legal age of alcohol consumption whilst in public. But it was, I forgot what they called it, but it was an apple, fizzy apple, wasn't it? It was like apple ties, but
It was really nice.
very nice. We've actually still got a bottle indoors.
We do, we need to open it.
We do. That was meant to be once I finished the 10k. We were going to do it, but then everything's gone whoopsie-woo since then. So compare this New Year's Eve that we just had to the previous one in Southend. We saw more fireworks in Southend.
Oh, we did. To be fair, the atmosphere in Southend was amazing. It was good. But Paris was just a different level, honestly. Counting back in French.
That was
Oh,
fun.
well, that wasn't fun. It was difficult.
So, talking of French, are you learning French at school?
No, I'm not. I'm actually learning Spanish.
And how's that going?
Amazingly.
That's good.
Yeah, I really like it. It's a nice language.
But you studied both when you were in junior school or primary school?
Yeah, I studied Spanish for about half a year, and then the rest of the 5 years was all French, the same teacher.
But you still preferred Spanish?
100%. I think it's just a nice language and flows off, comes out the tongue nicer.
So when I was going through my secondary school, I did, I think, 3 years of French, 2 years of Spanish. I preferred Spanish and stuck with that. Kind of regret it now because obviously my trip's into Paris, but I am slowly learning enough French to get by.
More French than me.
I can order 2 boxes of paracetamol, which is always
Oh, you
useful,
can indeed.
and breakfast as well.
Yeah.
So those voices you can hear belong to the staff in the coffee shop. English being quite a universal language, so for us English folk, we're quite lucky. However, we do try and speak French when we go to Paris.
Yeah, I say the odd word or two. But
And when we were in Starbucks, they were quite helpful
they were.
the first time round.
Yeah, they were.
And have you found any language problems being in Paris? I know I've sort of been the voice box for everyone, but have you noticed people conversing more in French or more in English with you? Or?
More English, but they can see I'm actually trying.
So like in the Lind shop, the chocolate shop in the Latin Quarter.
Yeah.
Very nice man and woman there, I believe.
Yeah, I think one of them are actually Portuguese. They speak
Portuguese.
Spanish, French and English.
Was that the lady? Or was that the man?
I don't remember. I think it might be both of them.
Because I think the lady, when I went back for the marathon, she was still there. But made friends with a different chap from that shop. He was very friendly and saw him afterwards as well, walking home, popping down on the metro.
Oh, nice.
I am quite, I don't know if distinguished is the right word, but once you see me, you tend not to forget me, being 6'4"
Yep.
and dressed with
A weird style.
a weird style with a hat on my head quite often.
Yeah.
So I got asked the other day, in fact it might have been earlier today, which is my favourite, Ibiza or Paris.
Oh yeah, it was actually. We did
So-
ask you that.
So for those of you that know me, you know my love of Ibiza. It's an absolute beautiful island to go to.
Yeah.
Nev's next door at the moment in Mallorca, having a nice little break. So myself and Rory, I say we're in a coffee shop having a chat. But my love for Ibiza is it's overwhelming. I started going back in '94. Eventually got Rory and Jasper there in 2018. We followed up with a 2020 visit during the mad time of the COVID pandemic.
Yep.
And then we went back to Ibiza again in 2021, the week after the London Marathon.
Yeah. The 2021 was actually alright, thinking about the time. It was an alright.
We were lucky because when we arrived, they then said lockdown time again. And one thing that I have noticed studying the pandemic lockdowns is every country did things differently. So where we had one long lockdown, France had a lot of little lockdowns. We then entered our different restriction groups, at which point Paris had already done that. They had their curfews and everything else. Now this is a non-political podcast, so I'm not going to say which government did things right and which ones didn't do things right. You can read my blog for that. But I would have done things totally differently to everyone, because I would have shaken hands with world leaders and said, right, let's welcome this together.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we got to Ibiza and we had a nice week, and then I returned from that week, skipped off straight to Paris, which I wasn't meant to do. But hey, times have gone past. I'm sure the politicians won't come for me now that they've been in more trouble than it's worth. But again, it's not a political podcast, just covering my tracks. So, Ibiza, how'd you find that?
Amazing. It was stunning, enjoyable, lovely.
But more of a beach holiday,
Yeah.
despite the 5k walk that we took one day.
Oh yeah, from Calalonga to
Sant'Ilaria.
Sant'Ilaria.
Yeah,
And then we
that
took the Uber back, didn't we?
certainly did. That was a well-deserved cab. So I do take the cabs.
The lady was nice, wasn't she?
She was a very nice driver, absolutely. Yeah, she did us good. So then we've been to Paris twice.
Yeah.
I say at the beginning, once was for the Christmas New Year gap,
Yeah.
and the second time was for the half marathon coinciding with your birthday, which was
Yeah.
quite nice because the day after was your birthday.
Yes.
So we managed to save a couple of quid on the Eurostar fare there. So
But they wouldn't have actually known it was my birthday, would
they would have checked your passport and seen.
they? Oh yeah.
But then the passport control's totally different to the ticket people.
Yeah.
So that we could have got away with that.
Got away.
I wouldn't want to risk it for a biscuit. Not with the French authorities or the English, in fact.
Yeah.
And Eurostar was struggling as it is. Which is good for competition, but no good for Eurostar. So, now having been to Paris twice,
Yep.
compared to Ibiza.
Oh. See, it's two completely different things. It's a beach holiday, like I said already, and it's a city break. But if I kind of had to choose one, it would be Ibiza, as it's more of a relaxing. You've got time, you can do anything you want. Whereas Paris is amazing, and you've got shops down the road, you've got shops next to you. But it's kind of just energetic. That like I said, everything's going on at once. You don't really get a rest day.
So, the reason for that, Ibiza, when we go all-inclusive beach holiday, nice and relaxing. Paris being a city break, as you rightly said, there's so much to do. Things always going on. Doesn't matter what day of the week, what time of the day or night. Things are always buzzing, and that's, for me, that's nice.
Yeah.
Gives me creative juices and creative input. But likewise, relaxing in an Ibiza beach, a poolside bar is also very nice. Sometimes very much deserved.
That Saint Eulalia bar was nice, wasn't it? The hut, remember?
At a beach hut,
Beach hut,
absolutely
hut.
very good. I've forgotten the lady that ran that. It's not Matilde, but it wasn't Matilde.
It was a really Spanish name. It was a proper Spanish name. I wouldn't be able to remember one bit.
Now the funny thing about you saying about the Spanish beach hut was the first time I ever had a croque monsieur was in Ibiza.
Oh wow.
There you go. So that's how one way I can tie things back to Paris every time. The weirdest thing for me was going to a Spanish water park, asking for croque monsieur in Spanish, and trying to remember whether to say s'il vous plaît or por favor at the end of it. that was surreal.
Yeah.
But it's like the time I was also in Ibiza many years later, and I went to a Chinese restaurant, and I ordered all the food in Spanish, and she responded to me all in English.
Oh.
That was nice.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to the language, I find that a lot of the people in Paris do talk to you in English.
Yeah.
You can. What's the first thing you say when you walk into a shop?
Bonjour.
And from that, they can detect whether you're English or not. Just the way we say it. And then they want to use their English. It's a sign of, look, I speak English. Also, it's a way of making us feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And also for them, some of them, it's a nice way for them to practice their English.
Yeah.
Which isn't good if we want to practice our French.
Nope, it's really not.
But it's not just like that time we went to the hotel and I was chatting to the chap at the front desk about my running.
What, HSP? Hotel Saint-Pierre?
No, it was the second one, down the Rue des Hôtels by Gare Tonneau.
Yeah.
And I was saying about where I did the half marathon to Bois de Vincennes, and he was saying that there's a prison there and a race course, and he was saying this to me all in French because his English wasn't particularly strong. His English was probably as good as my French, so we were quite level on that.
Yeah.
But that was I do find that
probably interesting. I do remember just standing around going, what is happening? 1 second we're talking about what we done yesterday, next thing is what we got for Christmas. It's really weird.
Yeah, no, it's good conversations. So, is there anything you wish to discuss? Anything you want to bring up, or any questions you thought I was going to ask you about?
No. Apart from what I study.
So, what do you study?
Currently I study RS, English.
What's RS? For those that don't know.
Religious studies.
And just for the record, that noise was the chair that Rory moved with his foot.
Oh yeah. Religious studies, English, maths, all through sciences, chemistry, biology and physics, PE, art, all the regular subjects that majority would get in an average school.
And now that you've had your debut podcast interview,
Yes.
what do you hope to go on to in the future, living-wise, for a career, a job?
I've been thinking about this for ages. It would be either like a sporty coach, so that's biology, PE, physical education, all of that, or just playing in sport full time. So it could be an F1 driver, which is probably never going to happen, as you need loads of karting experience, F2 and all of that. And then a basketballer, to a rugby player, to a footballer from a young age. But yeah, I'm not actually too sure yet. We'll see how my GCSEs will do in a couple of years, and go from there.
Definitely sports related.
100% sports. Yeah.
Well, you know my favourite podcaster, Oliver G.
Yeah.
He's not here at the moment.
Shout out.
Shout out to Oliver G in the Eiffel Tower. Whoop whoop. Absolute, truly fabulous chap. Met up with him just before doing my marathon and bought a painting off of him. Little known fact that I am the painting purchaser.
How much was it?
I don't wish to divulge such things, but I did win the auction. So
auction.
Apologies for the person that actually bid higher than me. I was told by Oliver that because he knows how big a fan I am, that he wanted to sell it to me because it would mean more.
Oh, sad. Poor person.
So I do apologise to the unlucky entrant. However, it's gone to a very good home.
Where even is it?
It's on the dining table, waiting still to be framed up. Which,
Dusting.
Not dusting at all. I look at it every day when I'm downstairs. But it's going to be put in a frame along with a photo, a letter of provenance, and again, not many people know this, but I've also bought a copy of his book, Paris on Air.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Got it from Smith & Son in the Marais. I was having a coffee with Nev one afternoon in Place de San Antonio, which is also San Antonio being a place in Ibiza.
I was just thinking about that, to be fair.
We stopped off for a coffee and I thought, I'm just going to have a check. I'm supporting him on Patreon now, and I thought, why not? So I went, bought it, read it, amazing book. Nearly as good as my debut book, Mind, My Mind, Mind. I wouldn't recommend anyone buying it though, or even reading it. But it was 3 years of my life written down. So again, I've always been into writing. That was back in 2001. I started that.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago.
What time did you finish it?
Finished about 9:15. So no,
Yeah.
so it took 3 years to do. Self-published. But yeah, so Oliver G, going back to the subject, is a huge basketball fan and player. Absolutely, he plays or used to play till he got dodgy knees. I don't know if he still does play, but there's a special basketball court around in Paris, and it sort of backs onto one of the famous walls and stuff.
Wow.
And I think on my many travels of walking, I have seen that basketball court. I'm sure I've seen it, and I've got a photo somewhere.
What is it, that actual team, or is it play for international, like European?
No, it's just a group of French people or international people just hanging around. Like you go to the park and have a kick about with football, that sort of thing. But also riding off the back of Oliver G and basketball, there's a rugby player from South Africa, from New Zealand, who's opened up a restaurant in Paris.
Ooh.
I've forgotten his name.
Is he like the manager of it, or is he?
He was a proper all black. All black player, and he's running it. And I don't think he's chefing.
He wouldn't be in there. So if I went there tomorrow, he would be there.
He might be. I'd need to find out research and stuff.
Do you know his name?
I don't, but it will be in the show notes after the show. Rugby player, restaurant owner. Yeah, so that's that. But also going back to rugby, you play rugby yourself.
I do.
You're going to enter the under-13s squad come September, and that's for Wanstead Heron Rugby Football Club, which still creates confusion to a lot of people.
It's not regular football. The football is kicking the ball, but it's majority passing with the hands. But you can't say rugby club. But if you're kicking it, then it's rugby football. Unless you're kicking it like a football.
But yeah, and obviously France are quite good with their. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. They're quite good with their rugby. They like playing rugby. Let's put it like that. We've got the Rugby World Cup coming up at the end of the year, which if you're listening later on in time, you will know who's already won.
Actually, today England and Wales are playing in the Nations Summer Conference or something like that.
So that's like the Mickey Mouse Cup.
I don't know what it is, but I think that's on at 5:30 GMT.
So we did British summertime.
Oh, it could be that. I don't know.
So it's going to start in about 7 minutes at the time of this recording. However, obviously listening, once this is out, it would have already taken place. And I might even, for future reference, put the score down if I can remember.
Hopefully.
And if I find my notes here that I've scribbled down in the coffee shop. So we're coming up to 20 minutes, which is roughly a good time for podcasts to finish. So I'd like to say thank you to my second guest.
Thank you.
That's Rory, my eldest son. At some point I'm going to try and get Jasper in. Who knows what's going to happen. And for those that think you may recognise Rory's voice, he's going to get embarrassed now, but he is the voice of the jingle.
Oh yeah, that is me.
I don't know if you want to give a quick live performance.
I'm fine, thank you.
Go on then, one quick one.
I'm fine,
Go on, one quick one. Go on, one quick one. Go on. Go on. I did buy a coffee.
I'm fine, thanks.
It's non-coffee coffee, by the way, for those listening. Worried that my 13-year-old boy is smashing out the caffeine. We don't do that. So anyway, so thank you once again for joining me. And that's it. Anything you wish to say?
Not really.
Okay. Well, that makes a lovely change. So we shall see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Coffee Pot Conversations.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of An Englishman in Paris, Coffee Pot Conversations. We've had the pleasure of talking to our special guest today, Rory, a remarkable young lad who I've had the pleasure of knowing all his life. If you want to explore more about me and my general times that have some relevance to Paris, don't forget to visit anenglishmaninparis.blog. You can also check out @An Englishman in Paris blog on Instagram. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider supporting the podcast by buying a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/an Englishman in Paris. Your support goes a long way in keeping the conversation going. You can either buy a one-off coffee or subscribe for a monthly membership, which at this stage doesn't actually give you too much, being the beginning of 2024. However, moving forwards, I am looking at getting a lot more behind the scenes, extra videos, extra recordings. That's all the good stuff still to come. So please stay tuned for our upcoming episodes, where we'll dive into even more captivating stories and insights. Until next time, remember to keep sipping that intellectual brew with Coffee Pot Conversations. And before we finally wrap up the conclusion, I want to give a big thank you to Rory for being the other part of this conversation. Truly humbled from a dad to his lad. I thank you. Now time for a jingle.
Coming up on Coffee Pot Conversations.
We'll be covering King Louis XIV, the Sun King, not in a professional historian way, but in the way that we've already come to know and expect from me. And we'll also have a repeat guest. Yep, that's right. Someone has actually said that they'd like to come back and have another chat with me. Don't forget you can follow my writings on an Englishman in Paris.blog or follow me on Instagram at an Englishman in Paris blog.
Coffee Pot Conversations.
Yes, so that was episode 1.5, Rory's debut with myself and my eldest son, Rory. Yeah, I've covered everything that I wanted to say in that previous bit, except just once again, I want to say thank you, son. You're amazing. I know you don't like hearing your own voice, so you're going to struggle to hear this. I know some of your rugby friends are subscribed to my Instagram account at an Englishman in Paris blog. Maybe they even listen on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, who knows. I'm trying a few different things within the website to try and make things easier to navigate across the whole brand of an Englishman in Paris and cover Coffee Pot Conversations. It's not easy. I'm still learning. But one thing that I did notice, which I should have said at the beginning, and apologies, hopefully you would have listened all the way through now, and that's for Frankie, lady that I work with, who listened to episode 1.4, Romancing in Paris, and said she was going to play the episode to her friend to try and convince the boyfriend to let her go. So I just want to say thank you to Frankie for not only listening and hopefully popping the episode out to someone else who then may advance the listening ratings, but also I want to say thank you to Frankie for letting me know that you've listened. That actually means quite a lot. But riding off the back of Frankie listening, there is a lady called Nicole who I work with. She's on maternity leave at the moment. I don't know if she's listening, but Nicole, if you are listening, I'm not washing my cup until you return to work. Okay? We know what that means. So that's it for this episode. All that remains is... Oh, you probably want to know who's been listening. Well, it's now only Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. That's not a problem. I'm still in their charts. Other people are listening. I know they are because I do see the reports on my report bits. So let me just see what's happening. And I have... Oh, if I click on audience, it will tell me that people in the UK and America, as well as Germany, Canada and France, are listening. There are other countries as well. They're smaller proportions, such as, Kenya is less than 1% of my listening populace. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Do let me know where you listen. That might be quite exciting for me. It's something to talk about. No one's answered any extra bits, which is a little bit sad, but that's not a problem. I've got extra bits coming up, lined up. Let me see. Have I got any questions on this episode? I don't know. But while I'm flicking through, what you can do is you can email me at... Well, actually, I'm going to come up with a new email address. And that's going to be podcast@anenglishmaninparis.blog. Email me there. I'm trying to make it simple as possible. I haven't got Coffee Pot Conversations website yet. That's probably going to be a lot more grief and aggravation for me at the moment. So I'm going to keep everything an englishmaninparis.blog. If you wish to email me at coffeepot, you can. If not, as I say, podcast at an englishmaninparis.blog or Instagram at an englishmaninparis blog. When I post this on Instagram, if you do get round to it, leave a little message saying you've listened to the podcast. Now, I want to create a little code just so I know what's going on. So let me think. If you can just write "Soon be Christmas" on my Instagram notes for this 1.5 Rory's debut episode, that would be amazing. So the question for this episode is, if you've been to Paris, when did you first go? And I'm just typing that in now, so that's quite an exciting one. But we've still got other questions that you can answer. You can email directly to me, as I say. If it's about the show, then do podcast at an Englishman in Paris. You've got all the other episodes. In fact, everyone's got a question to it. Charlie Jane 001, I know you're out there. Let me know that you're still there. I've also been asked, incidentally, to consult for a new and upcoming podcast. Now, if that takes place, that could well be a guest for me. I may be a guest for them. Probably not, because it may not be that side of things, but I'm happy to have them on. And that's going to be the poll. Would you ever consider appearing on my podcast? So, would you ever consider appearing on my podcast? Yes or no? And that's going to be quite an exciting one. I'm just going to adjust the date starting from the 12th. So what I need from you guys is obviously just yes or no. And if you want to, drop me a line. I haven't done remote podcasting yet. I'm always up for new ways of getting out there, helping people, talking to people, learning things. So on that note, it's time for Jasper's jingle.
Coming up on Coffee Pot Conversations.
Yes, I've probably covered this already, but we do have more interviews. We also have a returning guest. We are coming up to the best bits. I've not had anyone tell me what the best bits are, so it's going to be more of me talking. So apologies for that. I have updates within episodes. I have still got in my mind's eye a few people that I will be interviewing. I want to interview, I should say. I may not necessarily get around to interviewing, but I'm going to be positive. I will be interviewing them. I've got a load of books and reading material I need to get through, load of research to be done, and I still have trips to Paris that I want to make, including, which will be an episode, the Paris Olympics. Rory, take it away, son.
Coffee Pot Conversations.